Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in Matthew chapter 11, verses 7 through 30. Immediately after John's disciples come and ask Jesus if he's the Messiah. While John's disciples were going away, Jesus began to speak to the crowd about John. "What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? What did you go out to see? A man dressed in fancy clothes? Look, those who wear fancy clothes are in the homes of kings. What did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'Look, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you.' I tell you the truth. Among those born of women, no one has risen greater than John the Baptist. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he is. From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence, and forceful people lay hold of it. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John appeared. And if you are willing to accept it, he is Elijah who is to come. The one who has ears had better listen. To what should I compare this generation? They are like children sitting in the marketplace, who call out to one another, 'We played the flute for you, yet you did not dance. We wailed in mourning, and yet you did not weep.' For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they said, 'He has a demon.' The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they said, 'Look at him, a glutton and a drunk, a friend of tax collectors and sinners.' But wisdom is vindicated by her deeds." Then Jesus began to criticize openly the cities in which he had done many of his miracles, because they did not repent. "Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! If the miracles done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I tell you, it will be more bearable for Tyre and Sidon on the day of judgment than for you. And you, Capernaum, will you be exalted to heaven? No, you will be thrown down to Hades. For if the miracles done among you had been done in Sodom, it would have continued to this day. But I tell you, it will be more bearable for the region of Sodom on the day of judgment than for you." At that time Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and intelligent, and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this was your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son decides to reveal him. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke on you and learn from me, because I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and my load is not hard to carry. Yeah, so let's see what Guzik has to say here. Jesus reminded people that John was God's chosen herald of the Messiah, not a man-pleaser or a self-pleaser. He was in fact more than a prophet, because he alone had the ministry of serving as the Messiah's herald. For that he was the greatest of prophets and the greatest of men. He who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. Though John was great, he was not born again under the new covenant. This is because he lived and died before the completion of Jesus' work at the cross and empty tomb. Therefore, he did not enjoy the benefits of the new covenant. Interesting. The kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. Jesus' reference to violence refers to both the intensity of spiritual warfare surrounding the ministry of Jesus and his herald, and also the intensity required to persevere in following God in his kingdom. The exact sense of this has been greatly debated and is made more difficult by complicated grammar. Carson probably gives the best sense of both expressions. The kingdom has come with holy power and magnificent energy that has been pushing back the frontiers of darkness. This is especially manifest in Jesus' miracles and ties it with Jesus' response to the Baptist. The kingdom is making great strides. Now is the time for courageous souls, forceful people, to take hold of it. That's not how I've taken it in the past. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. Jesus saw an era ending with John. All the prophets and the law anticipated John in his ministry as a herald. There's a sense in which John spoke for every prophet who heralded Jesus' coming. Under the Old Covenant, every other prophet announced the Messiah is coming. John alone had the privilege of saying the Messiah is here. Yeah, so you have here John as the capstone of the prophets, the last one, unlike what Muslims may say. And if you are willing to receive it, he is Elijah who's to come. John may also be seen as Elijah in a partial fulfillment of Malachi 4:5. John was not actually Elijah, but he served in the same spirit and power of Elijah, thus fulfilling his office. Elijah did come, in fact, during Jesus' ministry, during the Transfiguration, but in further fulfillment of the Malachi 4:5 promise, Elijah will come again before the second coming of Jesus, likely as one of the two prophets. But what shall I liken this generation? Jesus here considered the nature of his current generation and how they were choosy and uncertain in receiving God's message and his messengers. We played the flute for you and you did not dance. We mourned to you and you did not lament. The idea is that those who have a heart to criticize will find something to criticize. Many people wouldn't be pleased with either John or Jesus. Yeah, didn't matter what they did, they would end up criticizing them. They refused to hear God's voice in either form, the somber or the joyful, in judgment or in mercy. If it did not accord with their conventions, there was no pleasing them. And then he began to rebuke the cities in which most of his mighty works have been done. This principle, greater light means greater responsibility, means that the Western world has a tremendous accountability before God. The West has had an access to the gospel that no other society has, yet remains in desperate need of repentance. When Jesus said that it will be more tolerable for certain cities in the day of judgment, he implied that there are in fact different degrees of judgment. Some will be punished more severely in the final judgment than others. There are degrees of felicity in paradise and degrees of torment in hell, a point Paul well understood. The implications for Western English-speaking Christendom today are sobering. You have hidden these things from the wise and prudent, and have revealed them to babes. Jesus was happy that God had chosen the unlikely, seen by the world as babes, to respond to his message of the kingdom. This should be seen in a larger context of the rising rejection of Jesus and his messengers starting in Matthew 9. Come unto me. Jesus showed his authority when he said, come unto me. Yeah, the invitation is unthinkable in the mouth of anyone else but God. All you who labor and are heavy laden. Jesus directed his call to those who were burdened. He called those who sensed they must come to him to relieve their need instead of living in self-sufficiency. Heavy laden suggests the same thought as Matthew 23:4, where Jesus spoke against the religious leaders of his day as those who bind heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on men's shoulders. For I am gentle and lowly in heart. Jesus revealed his nature when he described himself as gentle and lowly of heart. It is his servant's heart displayed through his ministry, making him qualified to be the one who bears our burdens. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jesus summarized this wonderful call with this assurance. The yoke is easy and the burden is light because he bears it with us. Borne alone, it might be unbearable, but with Jesus it can be easy and light. This isn't a call to a lazy or indulgent life. There's still a yoke to bear and a burden to carry, yet with and in Jesus, they are easy and light. Jesus' yoke is easy, not because it makes lighter demands, but because it represents entering into a disciple relationship. Carrying on here, Psalm chapter 14, verses 1 through 7. Fools say to themselves, there is no God. They sin and commit evil deeds. None of them does what is right. The Lord looks down from heaven at the human race to see if there is anyone who is wise and seeks God. Everyone rejects God. They are all morally corrupt. None of them does what is right, not even one. All those who behave wickedly do not understand. Those who devour my people as if they were eating bread, and do not call out to the Lord. They are absolutely terrified, for God defends the godly. You want to humiliate the oppressed, even though the Lord is their shelter. I wish the deliverance of Israel would come from Zion. When the Lord restores the well-being of his people, may Jacob rejoice, may Israel be happy. Yeah. Ultimately, those who think that they will not have to answer for their actions are wrong. And the psalm says that fools say to themselves, there is no God. Everyone rejects God. They are all morally corrupt. None of them does what is right, not even one. Before Romans 3:23, we have Psalm 14:3. That is, everybody's a sinner. Everybody has something that separates themselves from a just, righteous, and holy God. Yeah. And the psalm even looks forward to God's solution for this separation between God and man. I wish the deliverance of Israel would come from Zion. When the Lord restores the well-being of his people, may Jacob rejoice, may Israel be happy. Interesting, too, that you have the double rejoicing from both Jacob, from both the fleshly Jacob and the spiritual Israel. Like a unification of flesh and spirit. The Hebrew word for fool in the psalm is Nabal, a word which implies an aggressive perversity, epitomized in the Nabal of 1 Samuel. The fool has said in his heart. David not only found what the fool said to be significant, where he said it is also important, in his heart. The God-denying man David has in mind is not merely troubled by intellectual objections to the existence of God. In his heart, he wishes God away, typically for fundamentally moral reasons. John 3:20 explains it this way, "For everyone practicing evil hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his deeds should be exposed." This means that the man David had in mind is not an atheist for primarily intellectual reasons. Honest intellectual agnosticism does not necessarily produce immorality. Dishonest emotional atheism always does. Yeah. if for the only fact that it's dishonest. When we speak with one who denies God, we should not only, or even primarily, speak to his head, but also to his heart. Let the preacher aim at the heart and preach the all-conquering love of Jesus, and he will, by God's grace, win more doubters to the faith of the gospel than any 100 of the best reasoners who only direct their arguments to the head. Yeah. Paul, in his preaching, in one of his letters, said that I resolved to know nothing except Christ and him crucified. That is, not to win people over, well, not to have people's faith be primarily based on intellectual arguments, I think. So. Carrying on here, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 19 through 20. By wisdom the Lord laid the foundation of the earth. He established the heavens by understanding. By his knowledge the primordial sea was broken up, and the clouds dripped down dew. Yeah, so wisdom was involved in the creation of the world. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.